This is the Your Money Hour podcast. I am your host, Dakota. Welcome to the show, everybody. No matter where you listen for, whether you're in Germany, Africa, Ireland, thank you for joining us today. So if you're struggling with your finances and you're wondering if you can get better with handling your personal finances, contact me today. DakotaGrady.com is our website to get resources about how to handle your money. And also, if you have a business and you're a nurse practitioner, entrepreneur, or a nursepreneur, and you need help with bookkeeping and your taxes, I'm also your guy. Contact me today at DakotaGrady.com. Resources about how to get help with your bookkeeping and taxes. So today my guest is Dr. Jamil Ramsey. He is actually a friend of mine. His wife, Dr. Kiki Ramsey, is a friend as well. So she was on the show maybe like over a year or so ago. So I wanted to have Dr. Ramsey on the show today to talk about something when it comes to blockchain and Bitcoin. So Dr. Ramsey, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So tell everybody about what you do and who you are.
All right. So thanks for the intro. I am Dr. Jamil Ramsey. I go by Black Guy Who Codes, and I'm currently a PhD. I did my research on blockchain from Capital Technology University. I've been an IT professional for the last 20 plus years, really just growing and trying to develop in this space. What really drew me to blockchain is just the opportunity of building a real international commerce platform. Traditionally, as African Americans, we don't have any control over any real infrastructure in this country. We are merely consumers that ride the chain. So looking at an opportunity like blockchain is like, okay, we have this opportunity. It's an accessible technology if you really have the wherewithal to understand the inner workings and to build on it. And it became fairly popular for many bad reasons, but nonetheless, being infamous is still famous. So my research really centered around issues of adoptability of blockchain networks and what would really need to happen for us to really have a wide scale adoption of it. So I'm gonna just do a little bit of a recap on what blockchain is. It is a peer-to-peer network, which means it's a network not controlled by an individual company, but it is a network built by any two individual computers. And if you get enough of those computers, you have a worldwide network. It is a basic subset of the internet, except it revolves around individual people rather than individual servers. So, and on top of that blockchain network, we have assets which are called cryptocurrencies. The first major one being called blockchain, which was developed by an anonymous guy named Satoshi Nakamoto. People who've never really seen him think the name is an alias, but that's one of the benefits of blockchain is that it could be a totally anonymous network and you can get on and off of it without a high likelihood of being traced, even though there are still ways of traceability. So they were really, him and a group of other cryptologists and digital money advocates were really dissatisfied with the 2008 financial crisis. So they decided to really continue to push their agenda. And Nakamoto ended up coming up with the, I guess, perfect combination for their particular use case. Blockchain isn't brand new technology. It's existing technologies put together in a way that makes the use work. So he found a way to eliminate what we call in the digital space, the double spend, meaning your account has $100 in it and you can only spend $100. You can't spend that $100 multiple times. In a traditional Visa network, we double check double spend by asking Visa, hey, or Bank of America, hey, this person says they have $100. Do they have $100? And that central authority can give us back a response saying, yeah, the money is there. With the peer-to-peer network, we have to trust that what the person says is true. And that was a pretty big problem. And it was solved by what we call crypto mining. meaning we had, in order for a transaction to be legitimized, a big problem had to be solved in order to validate it. And this can happen independent of any third parties. It's basically a big race. We say, hey, we got this transaction. Everybody on the network, the first person to solve this problem, they get a little bit of money for solving it, and they also helps to say that this is a legitimate transaction. So he solved the double spending problem. It was an anonymous currency. So with those two things together, obviously the first real use case was in the black market. And that's where the use case was really proved, where people who didn't really want to have open transactions and actual real fungible fiat currency, they would use Bitcoin in order to conduct transactions. So although the activity was illegal, it did prove the use case that this network and currency built on top of the network could work as a viable means of commerce. So the next thing, this is a little bit controversial, is that the use cases transfer from one set of criminals to another set of criminals. And this is where the general population really learned about the existence of cryptocurrency, Bitcoin in general. So a little education on how rich people in this country become rich and stay rich. You're always going to hear that we want to invest in assets over liabilities. Asset classes come in many different forms. It could be a physical form, which is a mortgage, or it could be an abstract asset like a mortgage-backed security, which is just the value of a mortgage repackaged as a security that can go up and down in value. And what caused the financial crisis is that these big financial markets continue to overvalue the security, push up the leverage, and borrow on things that shouldn't be borrowed at levels that it should never be borrowed on. So this is a cycle. You'll see it if you look back in history. You'll see it happen with mortgages. It happened with stocks. It happened with savings and loans. It happens with almost every asset class, because if you don't produce a product that can be marketed, you can only try to make money off of an investment. And sometimes you try to make money out of nothing, and that's what happened with the financial crisis. Continue to create leverage and create borrowing to create money out of nothing. What always happens is that there's always a crash at the end of that cycle. So real estate always goes in cycles. Tech stocks always go into cycles. So big markets are always looking for what's the next asset class that we can artificially inflate in order to make a ton of money. So here enters in blockchain. It's a great technology. It had one limited use case, but it doesn't have a killer application for the widespread adoption because it's just not fast enough. The peer-to-peer nature means that transaction has to be validated, and that validation is slower. One of the fastest blockchain networks can only transact maybe 100 transactions per second, and that's very high. Whereas the Visa can do several thousands of transactions per second. So what that means is if you go to the grocery store and swipe your card, you're walking out within a few seconds. Depending on the time of day of a blockchain transaction, it could be there 30 minutes, it could be an hour. And on top of that, because of that speed and the availability, you can end up paying really high transaction fees. So as a broad general technology, it's just not ready for consumption. But as an over-leveraged asset, it was prime and ripe for big markets in order to use it, in order to create, high values that were really unsustainable and not tied to any real tangible benefit. So that's where blockchain stands today, and why I always gave people people to the advice. There's going to be a market for it. There's going to be people buying and selling, but you don't put in any money that you can't afford to lose. I call it the quote unquote play money, real play money. After you paid your bills, you saved yourself, you got your emergency fund. Now you have what we call true disposable income. Okay, I got a few $1,000 to throw at a speculative investment, because that's what it is, a speculative investment. Let's do that. I heard the story about, yeah. So I heard this, and here's the crux of the real issue, and this is how it's gonna relate directly to why I'm here talking to you. I heard a story about Warren Buffett was speaking with a financial reporter about his investment strategies and how he goes about his business and making money. And the reporter was just so puzzled and surprised. He was like, "This makes perfect sense. I understand it. It's proven. How is it that people don't do this?" And Warren Buffett's response was, "People don't do it because nobody wants to get rich slow." And that is the crux of what we call the crypto market crash, where you see all of these signs of impropriety within the market. It's because no one wanted to take the time to build a real sustainable system. They just looked at an opportunity to get people excited and create pump and dump schemes, which is create a token, get someone to endorse it, create excitement. And when the public, non-accredited investors put all their money in, they cash out. So the technology has a pretty bad taste in its mouth, which I'm not disappointed. I'm pretty happy about it, because in order to move to the next stage, we have to get out the trash people out of the market and really understand what the technology is. Now back to my research. Now that you understand why blockchain is where it is today, it's a good technology. It is not better than Visa. It can't overtake Visa. It's going to have to fill a different niche. So when I looked at the technology and what I wanted it to be, I understood immediately when I saw what was happening in the market. If you look at a transformative technology, it should not just be a copy of the current market system. And that's all they did with Bitcoin and all the rest of the tokens, is that they applied the current market system to this token and used it as a traditional asset. Its utility had no focus or no importance in its ability to create money. And that's why it crashed. My intuition with blockchain is that it's an opportunity to generate a network and to really take advantage of the law of big numbers, cooperative economics. Meaning we need to develop a community of people who are invested and transacting in this currency and able to come together in order to create a community of wealth. And that in turn gives you access and power and the ability to really make moves within this country. Now you can develop funding in order to build schools or build hospitals or build developments and develop a real community, because you are actually pulling all your money through this network and creating a real value, because value comes in how many people use this currency to pay their bills, to eat food, and things of that nature. So I understood two things, and one, my research really centered around adoptability. And from that research, we found that people only adopt based on how much they trust it. And they really trust institutions much more than people. So the first big barrier is building a community who has a singular vision and is willing to take a chance on developing something new. And that's the hardest part about the real adoption of blockchain. But I'm in the process of developing a technology that really allows you to identify yourself as a blockchain user, to create a real community, and also implement systems of regulation and risk management into the blockchain network. Because one of the biggest issues and why blockchain was created is because we couldn't trust the authorities that had control over the network. So they wanted to institute their own network, which they did successfully. But unfortunately, if you look at most of the cryptocurrency scams and controversies, they all link back to a single authority, like a FTX or any of the many cryptocurrency exchanges that exist. All that is us trading a bank-led central authority for a technology-led central authority. Ultimately, it's the same exact system. So my technology was really to eliminate anyone being able to have single authority power and really building a cooperative based authority. So that's what my research is. It's a long-term vision, because anything big is going to be long-term, and I follow Warren Buffett's strategy of becoming rich or building anything with this much influence is going to take time. But the biggest takeaway from blockchain is that if there is any single authority point within the network, then it's not blockchain. It is a traditional financial instrument that is just using blockchain as an abstract asset.
So, question: if someone wanted to adopt this new system, how would they mitigate the things that went on currently in blockchain with all the scams?
The number one thing is that you control your wallet. What happens with exchanges is that they control the cryptocurrency wallet. You sign, let's say if you sign up for Coinbase or Probit or Binance or one of the many exchanges. When you sign up for that account, you're signing up for a cryptocurrency wallet. So it's like your money isn't in your pocket, it's in the bank. And when it's in the bank, they have control of your money. That's the traditional system in a nutshell. And that's how all the scams happen. Pretty much they had control of your money and they made pretty bad investments, doing things that they weren't supposed to do. So with blockchain, you're supposed to control your own wallet. And that's the biggest hurdle. And that's one of the things I'm working on with the wallet I'm creating is creating a wallet that you control, that is not complex, and that has risk management built in. So we are accustomed to specific things when it comes to with our money in 2023. We want to be able to swipe. We want to be able to call someone if something happened with our money and have some way to have some kind of recourse. And I don't think those things are unreasonable, especially with cryptocurrency. One of my biggest beefs with a lot of the technology in the market is that they want to treat an inherently electronic currency as cash. It is not cash. If I bury my dollar bills in the ground, someone in China can't unbury it and take it. You know, it's fundamentally not something that we can control with our hands. So it has to have protections that in any other electronic currency would have, even if it is in a distributed system. So that's the problem that I'm tackling and saying, hey, I don't need to hold your money in order to give you protection. We need to be able to give you protections without it, or else it's a very poor distributed system. So if anyone is asking to hold your money, look at them with a side eye. Yeah, if you want to deposit your direct deposit from your paycheck with them, don't give them your money.
Right.
But the biggest one other thing, and I'll let you go. The biggest thing that we have to stop being greedy and trying to have an expectation that we can make something out of nothing. And that is the main reason why people are getting scammed, because they see the risk, but they think that there's a possibility of a big reward. And that's how you end up becoming a sucker.
Well, I mean, of course, we got a risk and reward. And if you got a high risk, there's a high reward too. Talk about that in terms of the risk. And if someone were to do this system, what's the risk involved?
So the risk in really creating a true community and a distributed system is that your success is bound to the group collective. So you're only going to be as successful as the people you can get into your group. And that's what makes people comfortable, especially African Americans. We haven't traditionally post Civil War, I'm a post Civil Rights era, really been invested in each other in a way that we really trust. So can we say that I'm going to put my money in, I'm going to support the community, and I'm going to be able to ride through the ups and downs of it? That is the risk of a ground level opportunity. It's not something that you can just jump on at the end and be like, hey, we made it. No, everyone has to jump in together, and we have to come up together. So managing those interpersonal relationships and really saying that, hey, I know you've had problems with Black businesses per se, and you have this thought process of where, well, Black businesses never do us right, and I can get it better somewhere else. When the reality is, Black businesses are no worse than white businesses, except you have a lot more tolerance of being abused by white people than you by being abused by Black people. It's a sad reality, but no one ever wants to accept that. Hey, I don't want to put my money in a Black bank, but they ghetto. But I put my money in a white bank, but they rob me. So it's really overcoming those things that really, if we can do that. So it's incumbent to find some small pilots of really like-minded people will have early success. So looking at people who, went and built small communities of developments and saying, hey, can we find some good opportunities to use this system to make the lives of the community easier on a smaller scale, and then look at how can we expand that out. Like I saw this community of Black people who bought a lot of land in Georgia in the Macon area, and they're building all these small houses. And a collective like that would be a good place to start saying, hey, you got this community out here, y'all really putting your stake in the ground. What are some smart and valuable ways to add some distributed technology that can really help this collective? And if you are transacting your money within a collective, it stays in the community until it needs to go out. And when it goes out, it's going to be for the benefit of the community and not for the benefit of the people it's going out to.
Mm. Yeah, and that's the thing with our dollar doesn't stay in our community that long. So that'd be beneficial. Talk about how the issue with speed of transactions, how would that be overcome compared to the Visa?
Yeah, so where we start is in a smaller community. If you build a system and the people in the community already have a high level of trust, now you have an opportunity to start relaxing some of the checks. So you can I came up with a couple of different thoughts on that process, maybe having signed and unsigned currency. So a signed currency is something that you need more security with because it's more risky, but unsigned transaction a lot faster through checks, but these are through trusted, verified people. And as those networks get bigger, your ability to use unsigned tokens would increase because there's more validation points of saying it'll be more of a digital reputation. If you're in a network of people and you're transacting with these people and they are really good friends with 30 people you already know, then the chance of that being a risk problem is a lot lower than if you're just dealing with an outside person who may be transacting with you as you being a vendor and they're being a unknown person. In that situation, hey, that's probably gonna be a signed transaction. And as you build relationships and you build, these bigger networks, then being able to verify people will happen a lot quicker. Like I said, this is definitely have to be a more long-term vision. So starting in smaller communities where it's more closed communities, it speeds up that process. And then now you can build trust from community to community.
That makes sense. So real quick before we close, any final thoughts on how we can work together as a community, meaning the Black community, how we can implement this process?
I think it's incumbent on our leadership, and unfortunately, our leadership is de facto people with money, to really get into a room together and say, hey, we are going to make a decision to do it, and understanding that there's going to be opposition, because when you take one opportunity from someone else and keep it in-house, that builds resentment. But it's necessary. And one of the initiatives that I started mapping out is that we need to have a real Black lobby. And that is, if you look at every other significant political group, they have a lobby behind them that really promotes their individual goals and objectives as far as what kind of representation we need in this country. And traditionally, we just are a tag-along lobby. We tag along with Democrats. We tag along with, gay rights. We tag along with women rights. We tag along with everyone, but there is no one who is available that puts real dollars behind the issues that are real germane to the Black community, individually and specifically. So one of the goals as I build these networks and I start developing wealth, that everyone I meet on my level, I bring them into the fold of understanding the importance of the Black lobby and creating a national agenda of what we should be focusing our dollars on and getting people with influence to buy in. We get the influencers to buy in, we can get the general population to follow along. And that's the challenge, getting Black people with money to do something.
So how can people find out about you online?
They can visit me at blackguywhocodes.com. I'm also on all of the social media networks at that same moniker.
Awesome. Dr. Ramsey, thank you for your time.
No, thank you.
And this is the Your Money Hour podcast.